At this time, I will call the Marshall City Council to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. We do have an agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda? If not, we'll operate under that agenda. The first item would be to consider the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting and the work session. Both were held on January 24th, 2023. The council does have the minutes of both of those meetings. Are there any corrections to note at this time?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Steve to approve the minutes as they have been presented. We'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Agenda item number 2 is a public hearing. This is a public hearing on the Quick Trip 1255 project. We'll have a public hearing on the preliminary plat, and then we'll also consider the approval of the preliminary plat, and we'll also then consider a resolution that would approve the final plat. But the first step would be the public hearing, and I will ask Jason Anderson, City Engineer, Director of Public Works, to conduct this public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor. So included in the packet, you've got the preliminary plat and the final plat for Quick Trip proposed addition. They've purchased the 3 parcels at the corner of North Bruce and East College in Marshall here with the intent of combining the lots into one, and later constructing a new gas station and convenience store at this location. We've done our preliminary and final plat review. We find everything to be in order. Thanks to Quick Trip for the late addition of an easement on the west side of the property after we got back with MMU. So that was great, and that was added to your packet. We're here for any questions, and I know that Quick Trip has a representative here tonight as well, Dean George, if anybody had any questions for Dean. But I don't think I've got anything more to say on this, and I'm here to address questions.
Okay, we'll open it up for, thank you, Jason. We'll open it up for any public comment as part of this public hearing on the Quick Trip development. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak? Or any member of the council? We'll have the representative from Quick Trip, Dean George.
Do you guys mind if I go now?
You go ahead.
All right, so Dean George, 1626 Oak Street, La Crosse, Wisconsin. Thank you very much for hearing our request. I don't need to comment on this plat specifically. It's pretty straightforward. I just wanted to say thank you to this body and to the city for welcoming us to Marshall. I wanted you guys to know that your city staff has been tremendous in helping us get kind of all the things we need in order for construction this summer. So we're looking forward to being here, and thank you for having me.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions that the council has or any input as part of this public hearing? If not, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
By Steve, seconded by Jim to close the public hearing. Discussion? If there's no discussion, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll now consider the approval of the preliminary plat. Correct, Jason? Before the resolution on the final plat. So I would entertain a motion on approval of the preliminary plat.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Amanda. Discussion? The one discussion piece, and Amanda, you can probably report, this has been considered by the Planning Commission.
This has, correct. I guess I should, they're not here, but Hoffman and Brobst was at the Planning Commission meeting, but it wasn't a public hearing. I assume their concerns have been addressed.
Thank you. Yes, I believe they have. We got them in contact directly with the Quick Trip group, and I believe they've had conversations, and seeing Dean shaking his head yes. So I believe that'll be worked out, and I think they've been addressed.
I wasn't too worried, but thank you.
I got to provide a little bit of color. So I think his name was Gary St. Alban, reached out to me and we connected, and he just wanted to see the plan, and he wanted to make sure there was no problems and adverse drainage on his lot. And I said, we'll get everything to the city for review before final building permits pulled, and if anything's out of order, we'll let you know, but I'm not anticipating any problems. So he and I did connect.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We will now consider the resolution that would adopt the final plat. Any questions on this resolution?
Move the resolution.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Steve. Discussion?
I just want to say that I've observed a number of these projects as Quick Trip has done their developments in the region, and everything that I've observed, I haven't seen them leave anything undone. So I appreciate the professional way that they develop out these sites.
Very good. Any other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll move then to the consent agenda. I will bring the items up on the screen that are on the consent agenda, and they include consider the engagement letter for audit services for the 2022 financial statements, transfer of 3.2% off sale and tobacco license to Kareem Incorporated, doing business as Freedom Gas Station. Consider the approval of a permit for alcohol beverages at city-owned facilities. The Lion Circle Reconstruction Project, consider the resolution ordering the preparation of the report on the improvement. Consider the approval of the community planning organization structure and approve the MOU with AFSCME, local number 65, accepting the union status for the senior engineering specialist and building services coordinator positions. And then finally, consider the approval of the bills and the project payments. Is there any item on the consent agenda any member of the council wants removed for purposes of a separate discussion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Okay, so we'll move to agenda item number 9. Agenda item number 9 is to consider the 2023 fee schedule as amended. And presenting this will be Carla Drown, Finance Director.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Staff are recommending the following amendments to the 23 fee schedule. First, the administrative surcharge of $25. This fee has been historically charged to invoices relating to snow removal and mowing. In the past, it has been presumed the street's hourly rate of $50 an hour, which went up in our 23 fee schedule to $55 an hour. That is in addition to the charged amount by the city contracted provider of the service. It's a staff suggestion to state it out separately in the fee schedule and reduce it in comparison to the staff hourly charge found throughout the fee schedule. This fee does not cover, but rather defrays the staff's costs, as well as encourages residents to clear snow and mow lawns per city ordinance. After discussion at the Ways and Means Committee meeting, it was determined that it be recommended to council as an administrative surcharge of $25 per invoice going forward upon council approval. The second item is the Adult Community Center fees. This amendment is a clarification to the fee schedule of deposits and room rentals at the Adult Community Center to state the rent for each of the available spaces. And the third item is the wastewater treatment facility increase in the excess phosphorus industrial charge. This would amend the increase. The increase would be an increase of $1.50 to cover the costs related to inflation in the ferric chloride. This increase in charge will make it possible for the city's wastewater facility to break even rather than cost us more money. If you have any questions? for those
I
three
would
charges.
have just one clarification on the, Stephen, if we could page back to the senior center, that the $100 is kind of hanging out there in the middle. Is that a reservation fee or is that a rental?
That is a deposit.
Okay.
So that's the deposit for the Prairie Winds dining area.
So that replaces the 80.
It was meant to be an $80 for the general public, and it was misread when inputted in the first place. So, and the deposit for the Prairie Winds was missed. They wanted to separate it out to be more clear that there's two different charges for the same room.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
I have a quick question. So, and I talked to Stephen about this a little earlier, so now when they get these bills for snow removal, and I know Jason and I had this conversation in December, and maybe this what spurred this change, and I'll take credit for it if it did. Because I had a constituent call and say that, why am I paying $75 for administration fee when it costs $20 to move the snow? And I called Jason and said, well, why are we doing this? So now the fee is only $25 administration fee, not $75, correct? So it'd be 24, let's per se $20 to move the snow and $25 for the billing. So instead of the original 75,
It was 50.
50,
But that's okay.
It was 50. But
Yep.
so that has lowered that fee, which I'm a big fan. I'm glad that we got these fees lowered over that discussion that you and I had back in December. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, thank you, Carla, for your work on this. I would entertain a motion on the amended fee schedule for 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Jim. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Agenda item number 10 is project ST009. This is the West Lion Street, North 3rd Street reconstruction project. The action before us tonight would be the resolution approving the plans and specification and ordering the advertisement for the bids. Presenting this will be, once again, Jason Anderson, Director of Public Works, City Engineer.
Thank you, Mayor. Included in the packet, we've got some plan sheets for council's review and public review, I guess, the landscaping sheets on the project in particular. This is a complete reconstruction downtown. We've talked about it numerous times now, so I won't get into too much detail, but we're doing water, sewer, storm sewer, street, sidewalk, some amenities and landscaping on 3rd Street in particular. But Lion Street from College Drive to 5th, 3rd from Main to Redwood, and the one block of 3rd between Main and Lion going to a one-way. Lots of work and effort has gone into this project, not only from city staff, but Bolton and Mink and PIT Committee of the Council, Downtown Business Group, numerous others. So it's been fun to pull this together, but we think we're close and we're ready to go out for bids. With council's approval, we would ask to start advertising as soon as the end of this week, and that would put us on a timeline to bring bids back to the council for the first meeting in March for your consideration. So here to address any questions you might have, but we would recommend that we move forward.
Okay. Open up for questions or input from Public Improvement and Transportation Committee.
Just
Craig?
like, yeah, quick, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just quickly, for the PIT committee, we've met along with city staff numerous times with the Downtown Business Association members, and then also specifically with concerns and, excuse me, interests with people primarily along 3rd Street between Main and Lion. And there's been a lot of ideas, there's been a lot of changes, but I think, and we met as recently as last week with the Downtown Business Owners Association. That was about a 2-hour meeting, and I think it was extremely constructive. And there's still not 100% buy-in on 100% of the project, but I think there's good agreement on where we need to go, and there's a lot of support by the property owner that's mostly affected in this project that'll be carrying the biggest share of assessment. And overall, I think the attitude and the anticipation is very positive. So I just, from that part, I really support this, and I really encourage council to continue to move this forward. And then Jim and John, I'll let you guys come with any other comments and things that you may have.
Well, the comments I would have as we visit with the downtown business associations, downtown businesses, is there's been a lot of give and take too. You know, there's stuff that the city proposed that they didn't think would work. And we actually went to work with MnDOT because it involved the light, which then also involves MnDOT, that we got to stay down here for the downtown association. And like Craig said, even as of last week, we thought we had an agreement and they said we had some more questions. So we met again. I want to say we've met with them, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, 4 or 5 times minimum.
I think more.
You know, and so it's been this is a good project of the community working with the staff and with us on PI&T, coming up with a project that is, like you said, Craig, not 100% supported, but I bet you 95% support it.
Right, and I think it's something that the community overall can be excited about, because as you look at the project plans and what this is going to do, this is 50 years of bones. This is a big project where it's a complete reconstruction. And I think it's a good follow-on, excuse me, on what was done starting in 2007 with the idea of Main Street. Making this something that's good for the community. It's going to create some opportunity for special events and maybe a little more of a destination, a kind of a specialty niche atmosphere that hopefully people will become more pedestrian adept into the downtown. And I think it goes along good with what's happened at the Atlantic, what's going on with Block 11, and just the Main Street in general. I think the vitality of our Main Street, especially looking at the rest of the region, is something that we can be really proud of and we need to continue to move forward on.
Well, and like the point you made, Craig, we as a city have invested greatly in downtown.
Yes.
I mean, we took a lot of grief for leaving our city hall down here. And I think that's turned out to be a very good choice.
Yes.
And it's just, I think this is another avenue off of that, keeping our downtown very viable and keeping people in town instead of scattering on weekends.
Any other input or questions? If not, this has had plenty of review. I would entertain a motion for the resolution approving the plan specifications and ordering the advertisement for the bids.
I would make the motion.
Motion by Jim,
Second.
seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll move then to agenda item number 11, project WW005. This is the Minnesota 23 lift station improvements and consideration of Bolton and Mink proposal for engineering services. Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. Included in the packet is a short letter proposal from Bolton and Mink for engineering services to rehabilitate our lift station at Minnesota 23 and Tiger Drive. You can see the map being displayed right now. That's the service area of this lift station. It's a significant lift for our community. It pumps wastewater from probably a third of our community to the treatment plant. So the gravity system makes its way to this lift and it gets pumped north of town to our treatment works. This project would replace all the pumps. It would make some other replacements to piping. We would recoat the wet well, replace some electronics, a generator switch gear. It's a pretty big project. It's just kind of a facelift for this lift station that's been in place largely in its original condition since 1993. A couple of the pumps are newer than that, but for the most part, it's a pretty original lift station. So we do have $350,000 in the wastewater budget for this project. This is a not to exceed contract of $25,000 to design it. Scott Trudson, our wastewater superintendent's present in the room too. If we have any questions, we'd like to direct at Scott, but staff would propose to move forward with this and get this project under design. It's a very important project and it's needed.
Jason, this lift does not have on-site standby power, does it?
Well, there is a generator.
Okay,
That's
there
what,
is.
that's part of the switch gear is part of the replacement.
Okay,
It's
good.
for the generator.
So this lift station, if we put that map back up, the history on this lift station prior to 1993 and the 1993 floods, the trunk sewer line that serves this didn't exist. So that whole area went into the main lift station, which is by Justice Park, and it was completely overwhelmed. And 1993 flood. So then this trunk sewer line was added at that time. And because that was added, that did allow not only the relief for the main lift station at Justice Park, but it also allowed the development that has occurred since that, namely in the west of Saratoga and south of Highway 23, including the residential and commercial development that's happened there. So
Yes.
really an important part of the community.
Yeah, it's a critical trunk line, and it's great.
Yeah, and but for that, the city could not have grown. So, questions for Jason? If not, what's the wishes of the council on the proposal for engineering services with Bolton and Mink?
I move approval.
I'll second that.
Motion by Craig, second by Amanda. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll move then to agenda item number 12, the instrument landing system replacement at the airport. Two actions here to consider the project addition to the airport CIP, and then second, the authorization to request MnDOT grant agreement to help with the funding of this. Jason, again.
Good thing you didn't call in sick today.
Yeah, thanks. So we received a letter in early January, mid-January from MnDOT Aeronautics regarding the replacement of our instrument landing system, or ILS, at the airport. This is kind of a surprise project that we were not anticipating. This is not on our CIP. It wasn't in our plans. But essentially what happened is MnDOT owns our ILS system. They have 9 of these similar systems throughout the state that they own. They are becoming obsolete, and the manufacturer will no longer service them. So they'd like to start replacing this instrumentation. So they've reached out to us. They feel like we'd be a good fit to get a project quickly for them. We kind of check some boxes for them as far as relating to the FAA and their requirements. It really limits their red tape. So they want the city marshal to partner with them to replace our ILS. They cover all the instrumentation costs, estimated at $400,000. That's their cost. The city would be responsible for hiring the engineer. In this case, TKDA is who we work with at the airport when we hire outside help. So we would work with TKDA to design footings, foundations, buildings, civil site work, all that type of stuff. To facilitate these improvements, they estimate that cost at $250,000. But we would be eligible for a state grant, and when the state wants you to replace something, the state grant can typically follow if you ask for it. So 70-30 split. Based on these numbers, we're looking at a local cost of $75,000 estimated. So with council's authorization, we'd like to proceed by responding shortly after this meeting this week to MnDOT and tell them we'd like to work with them on this and that we are willing to work with them. We would also then proceed to work with TKDA to put together an engineering proposal and seek state grant. A later step would be we would come back to the council for execution of a grant agreement, and you'd be able to see some costs at that point. So here to answer any questions. We'd recommend that we go forward with this. The ILS is a pretty important landing instrumentation at our airport. It helps the pilots land the planes when the weather's bad, essentially, is what it does. So it's pretty critical. We can try to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Greg, any input from the Airport Commission?
Well, just to kind of add to what Jason has said, and I'm not a pilot, but a lot of interest in aviation, and this airport serves a lot of our very essential, business aviation, but it also serves a very critical regional medical need. That's not only rotary wing, but in inclement weather, a number of our health carriers use fixed wing, and this becomes a very critical fixed wing hub. So when our public works people, when the care that they take at the airport, along with us maintaining a high level of pilot aid here, is, I think, very good for our community and very good for the region. So I'm 1,000% in support of this.
Any questions for Jason?
I have a quick question. It says that this is no longer going to be serviced. So how long is our system good for? I mean, I just throw it out there. Not being serviced is our system. I mean, is this something we have to be done sooner than later? Obviously sooner than later.
So our system works. The issue would lie if we have an issue that needs to be remedied or repairs need to be made. They have to be sent to this company, from what I understand, to be made. The company says they will no longer support it. So what MnDOT wants to do is start getting these replaced so that they can take parts and put it in their inventory and keep the other systems going until they can get funding to slowly phase them out. As I indicated earlier, we're a good airport for them because they can kind of get it done quickly, they believe, at our airport.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I don't have a question, I have a comment. So IFR is instrument flight rating, and when you have the glide scopes, that absolutely helps the pilots come in, and we're in a unique position. I'm curious how many other communities the size of Marshall have MnDOT-owned, equipment, but we are, again, unique, and so we want to grow our airport. We've been talking about getting commercial airlines and things like that. This piece of equipment is quintessentially important, having that. Without that piece of equipment, you don't have any commercial airlines. The medical stuff is important, but just pilots coming out here and flying here, it's an important piece. So we absolutely have to have it. It's one of those but for. If we don't have this equipment, we'll never grow our airport. And having that airport, I think, is a beautiful pearl, a diamond in the rough to attract more business into the Marshall and southern Minnesota region. So I'm all in favor of this.
And that, Doc, and thank you for that too, because that's exactly right. And then add a little bit further on the PINT this afternoon, we did discuss some proposals that'll be coming forward in the near future about our maintenance building addition and some of the things that add to that. And, I don't know if a lot of people understand that with like South or Midwest Aviation and the amount of other company aircraft support that they do there, the maintenance facility there serves a very large area of very high-tech aircraft that come in there for maintenance. And so, again, the more we keep with this, I think we have the third longest runway in
it might be
Minnesota.
sixth.
Sixth?
Yeah.
But it's what, 7,200 feet?
Yeah.
So it's big. I mean, you can land some pretty big airplanes there. And, just the whole thing is a tribute to, that's really a kind of a best kept pearl too. It's a little bit secretive of how much actually happens out at that airport. So if you have like Flights Live or Planes Live radar app on your phone, just watch sometime at the aircraft that come here, either pilot training where they're doing touch and goes at different airports, and then the maintenance batch that flies in and out of here for routine service. It's pretty amazing. That is a high-use, high-tech airport, and it's something to be very proud of.
Any other questions or discussion? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Craig for the project addition to the airport CIP that would include this instrument landing system. Discussion on that motion. If not, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll now then consider the authorization to request MnDOT grant agreement for this project.
I move the authorization.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Jim. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting.
Thanks, Jason.
And the motion does pass. We'll move then to consider appointments to various boards and commissions, bureaus, and authorities. So earlier this evening, the council did meet in special session, and based on the interviews that happened at that time, I would recommend the following: that Josh Schaefer be appointed to a second term on the Merit Center Commission. That term will expire December 31st, 2025. That Ashley Dwyer be appointed to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission. Again, that term would expire May 31st, 2025. That Jeff Winker be appointed to the Police Advisory Board for a term that would expire May 31st, 2025. We also interviewed an additional person for a board or commission. That person is not of age, that person is a minor, so we are holding off on considering that appointment until staff and our legal counsel has a chance to work with, in this case, the DEI Commission on the proper policies that would allow that appointment. So based on that, I would recommend that Josh Schaefer be appointed to the Merit Center Commission, Ashley Dwyer to the DEI Commission, Jeff Winker to the Police Advisory Board. Offer that as a recommendation and entertain a motion to affirm.
I'll make a motion.
I'd second.
Motion by C, seconded by John. Discussion?
Well, John said it too, so
Oh,
it's okay.
Using this here.
Right ear prevails, I guess.
Right here prevails.
It's okay.
Right-handed.
can have it. I don't care, yeah.
Any discussion on the motion other than which ear I was listening to?
This is your dominant ear.
If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes.
Mandy, you'll have to watch for that in the minutes next meeting.
Yeah.
Yes. We'll see if we got it right.
So we'll move then to Commission Board Liaison Reports. Craig, let's start with you.
You know, I don't have anything new to report, Mr. Mayor. It's been kind of a busy, but nothing on the official meetings, I guess, just all the other stuff going on.
Steve?
Likewise, no
Amanda?
reports.
Yeah, it's been quiet. There was no planning commission meeting. Public Housing Commission was canceled today as well.
So the, from my perspective, or my boards, the Southwest Regional Development Commission Board of Directors met this past Thursday evening. There's been kind of a completely new slate of officers that has, they go on a fiscal year, and because of some election changes that happened in November, that meant that the chair was no longer eligible to serve because he's no longer any elected office or official. And so there was an interim chair that was appointed who was the vice chair prior to that. So now there's an interim vice chair. And similarly, the secretary and treasurer are also in the same boat. So there is a completely separate set of interim. They're also, in terms of leadership, they also are in transition with, they're advertising and interviewing for a new finance director based on a resignation. And they also will be hiring 2 additional planners, or at least advertising with the hopes to hire 2 additional planners. And that's based on additional activity, and some of that is due to the IIJA and IRA funding that's coming to the region. Second report then would be from the Fire Relief Association. The Fire Relief Association is that benefit for our members on the fire department. And there's, so the annual meeting and annual report was held this past Tuesday. And there's really 3 components of the Fire Relief Association. And again, it provides benefits, and that benefit level is $6,500 per member, starting from the first day that they would join. And then they're fully vested and after a certain number of years. So one of the components of the revenue that funds that retirement is the state contribution that comes from a surcharge on automobile insurance. The other is the performance of the fund itself in terms of the investment and how those investments have gone. And then the third would be the contribution from the city to be sure that it is adequately funded. And we deal with that every year in our annual budget. So then the second component, the performance of the fund, like a lot of our experience with our individual retirement funds, last year was not a good year. So their fund declined by 16% in terms of the investment there. Now, the first couple months or first few weeks of 2023 has recovered somewhat. So, but that will affect the fund going forward. The fund is still sound and there's no issue with the fund. But some years you're up, some years you're down, and 2022 was a down year for the equity and security market. John?
I have nothing to report.
See?
Nothing to report.
And Jim?
Nothing to report.
Okay, then we'll move then to council member individual items. Craig, let's start at your end.
No, I'm done. Good.
Steve?
I will remain quiet and yield the remainder of my time.
Amanda?
I've got nothing.
Jim?
I have some stuff.
Okay.
I'm surprised Craig did not talk about our trip up to St. Paul.
Left that for you.
I was gonna leave it to you because you talk more.
That's why I left it for you.
Sharon, Craig, and I were up in St. Paul for, it was 2.5 weeks ago.
Jasmine was there also.
Jasmine too, correct. For legislative day, and we lobbied our two representatives to get the sales tax referendum bill into the tax bill. And it sounds positive. I think, Bob, you have to report on that again Friday or visit about that again on Friday. So hopefully that comes through, and hopefully it becomes an election this year, because every year that we wait, the pool gets more expensive.
Yep.
So, and then on the side note, during supper, because I know Dave Parsons and we've talked about the homestead credit. I got the privilege of sitting next to Chris Swedinsky. So I bugged his ear for about 5-10 minutes about this homestead credit. And he says, yes, they're aware of it. He says things in the state don't work as fast as you think they should, Jim. So, and it was a positive conversation I had with Chris as I sat
What he
next to
meant
him.
to say is just hush and eat your baked potato.
Pretty much, yes. I've eaten my baked potato, Jim quit talking to me. So that was brought up too. So Dave Parsons, if you're listening, I did bring it up, hopefully to correct it. Then the other thing I have is way back in December, we had the insurance issue come up, and I know I visited with EJ about this, and I visited with Sharon. I'm hoping that can come to council, because that could potentially be a substantial savings to the city. I mean, we're talking, I don't want to throw numbers, I am throw numbers out there. We're talking over $100,000 of savings to the city of Marshall. So that needs to get addressed, and that needs to come forward, I believe, the next 2 weeks, because I've been chomping at the bit and I've been being patient about this, but we're talking, 2% can get shaved off our levy if this policy is actually what they say it is, and I believe it is, but I would like to see that come forward February 28th, so we can start saving the taxpayers that money. That is, oh, and happy Valentine's Day, and thank you to Sharon for brightening our day here on Valentine's during our city council meeting. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
See?
Nothing.
Do you want to talk about Culture Center?
Oh,
Prairie?
I can, yes. We had our cultures on the Prairie event yesterday and today. We had a simulation called the Killing Field. So it was Cambodian refugees escaping war. Sam Oak was the one who did the simulation, and he said about, I think, a third of the Cambodian population was executed. And then we had our event today, so we had panelists, we had speakers, very good panelists. I think there's some future council members on that student panel. Some of them talked about representation and being active. So really excited. So thank you for all that attended. And I think city council, or Sharon and the mayor attended a little bit. So you came just in time for lunch.
Thank you, C, and thanks for your leadership on that group. So, John?
I really have nothing except as a new member, I was very disappointed when I was the only one who showed up for a meeting last week. And was surprised to find we did not meet last week.
Second and fourth, John, second and fourth.
Now, remember,
Still the new guy, so.
per diems are paid by the month, not by the meeting, so showing up for extra ones doesn't get you overtime.
Yeah, okay, good to know.
But everyone was in agreement, right? Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
everyone agreed with what I had to say.
We didn't have a good discussion.
Yeah, very good. 3 things that I talk about. Jim mentioned I will do the testimony on Friday that's a Senate committee. And we have had, discussions with our legislative professional, Marty Seifert, in preparation for that. So that'll be Friday afternoon. We don't have a time yet on that. at our last meeting, there was significant discussion about the proposed rental ordinances. And in follow-up to that discussion, I've been working with staff as well as our legal counsel on a work group and the formation of that work group. So we still don't have that quite finalized yet as far as how that process will go, but we're very close. So know that that is a work that's in progress. We mentioned just a little bit about the library because that's been in the news. And some of you may have had some input from interested members of the public on some of the things regarding the library. I always want to remember that the role of the city council and the role of the county with library boards is that we have authority to appoint the members on the board, and we determine their budget. Beyond that, by state statute, library boards have full authority of the management and the operations and the programming that's offered from the library. So while we have opinions, we don't have control over what the library might deliver in terms of services. And in terms of budget, we have for a number of years been in this relationship with the county where our operational costs are shared 2/3, 1/3 based on the usership of the library. So the city's responsibility is 2/3 and the county is 1/3. And then in order to keep that in whack, from going out of whack, if one of those entities decreases their budget, then the other entity has. And then the library staff then has to respond to that by what adjustments are they going to make based on the available budget. So while we can have opinions, we can be empathetic, we actually don't have control on that programming. So, and in the calls I've been getting, I try to explain that to people too. So we will be meeting with Sharon and I believe we'll be meeting with the county representatives, but with schedules mainly on their side, we won't be able to meet till probably the second week of March. So, and the final thing that I'll say, and I know I said I was only going to talk about 3 things, but the fourth thing I'll talk about is that I think the date's March 8th, but on March 8th, we will have the State of the City address. I know Sharon will work very hard on preparation for that, so thank you for that.
Bob will be up there winging it, doing great, right?
And it will go just fine. So with that, that's all I have. We'll move then to staff reports. Sharon?
So great that I get to speak after the mayor. So last year, no prep. The night before, he has all these notes. What? You're going to say something at the State of the City?
Right? Yeah.
So anyway, I'm always guessing, which is fine. Last Saturday night, we had open skate at Red Baron, 250 skaters, and that was due to Andrew Subi donating financial resources to make sure that it was free to those that came. So that was very successful and a really nice partnership with Andrew Subi, and I think he wants to continue some sponsorship of different events in the upcoming year. So we're really happy about that. Preston and I had some good discussions with our pool architect engineer. We are going to bring him back to a meeting at the end of the month, and we're going to talk about some timelines and specifically next steps with design bidding documents. Because when you kind of work back, if we get election potential in November of 2023, we've got to have things potentially ready earlier than that election date. So we'll have him kind of explain that as well. I did get an email on when your testimony is on Friday, and it's 4:20. And I will send you a calendar appointment. So 4:20 on Friday. And, we're, for the meeting, EJ and Jason and I are talking a little bit about bonding for 2024. And we haven't finished that discussion. It's very tight. And so, the levy increase for 2023 was really important. When we look at 2022, early results of the budget at the end of the year, which we know it's not audited yet, it's really, really close. There isn't extra funds kind of remaining. So being careful about all the projects, capital equipment, things like that, those are some challenges that we're kind of working through as a staff right now. And we'll see how we can kind of work through it. So, but yeah, I'll probably start prepping on State of the City, and hopefully you can show me your notes before the night before, because that would be kind of nice.
Yeah.
So that's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Sharon, remember Carol Burnett at the end of the show when she's there with the mop bucket and stuff, just kind of cleaning up? Yeah, that's what I'll be doing.
Jason?
Thank you. Chloride rebate program, that's been, I don't want to say it's been stalling out, but I think we're getting to a point where we want to try to re-advertise again. So Scott Trudson and the wastewater team have been putting together ads again, and you'll start hearing more advertising going on for grants for water softener replacements. So if you know anyone who's interested, or if your unit is old, 15 years old, you should have a consult. You can have a contractor come and do an optimization and a check, and we give you $50 for that. It's essentially free. And then if you decide you're in the market for a replacement, you can get a rebate up to, I think it's up to $750. So we've got free money we want to hand out, and we'll start reminding people again with a little bit of an advertising blitz. We've got a little ways to go yet on chloride numbers. There's been some improvements at the wastewater plant with our discharge, but we still have a ways to go. So we're trying to get some of those funds out and make some more improvements. The Joint Airport Zoning Board met for the first time last week after Airport Commission. It was a good first meeting with that group. 2 members of the county, 2 members from the city, one from the Airport Commission, 1 from the Planning Commission, and then 1 representing Ghent and Grandview Township. That's the JASB. It's a 5-member board. I serve as the chair and the secretary. So it was a good conversation. TKDA was there to present some background on what we're doing. I think in a couple weeks, we'll have a draft ordinance to start chipping away at, and we'll meet as a group in another month, and we'll go through that. So we'll keep you informed as it moves along. I think lastly, I'll be out on Friday grading grant applications for MnDOT, TA grant. Since we don't have an application, I got recruited to go listen to presentations and get out scores. So I'll be doing that. That's all I've got.
You want to mention the Highway 23, or you want me to mention that, the bid?
Go ahead.
So the Highway 23, they continue to work on the 4-lane expansion, and there was Corridors for Commerce funding that was actually supplemented by the bonding bill in 2018. That funded the 2 gaps. One is started construction last year, and that's Mathewoods Construction that has that contract from Paynesville to Richmond. And then the South Gap, which is approximately 7 miles from New London to Paynesville, they have received a low bid, and that was also from Mathewoods Construction. They go through a 30-day review period, and then will award that, and they anticipate that construction will start with house removal and tree removal on April 3rd, with full construction and detour going in place first week of May. I think that's correct, right?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay.
So Bob, that detour, that whole section can be detoured basically from Richmond up to, not Richmond,
New London.
New London, thank you, all the way up to St. Cloud?
Right.
So that's gonna be,
Well, it's not all the way to St. Cloud. It comes back.
in Paynesville, then you
It's a tie-in
detour.
back into Paynesville because they have an open lane that should remain open
Right.
through Cold Spring.
Right. And then we'll follow the similar detour north of Paynesville.
Like they did last year, so
Yes.
you'll be a significant detour through there.
Any other questions for Jason? Okay. Pam?
Nothing for the good of the whole. I will highlight our legislature is very busy. And so we've had an adoption of a few bills that the governor signed, the Crown Act, which has created a definition around race for our Minnesota Human Rights Act. So that includes hair texture and traits related to hair. Just so you know, Juneteenth is an official state holiday, doesn't go into effect until August, so it's impacted next year as the official day. There's the carbon-free 2040 bill, which I'm sure you've read about. Just so you know, it's probably going to get challenged in court by a couple different states. And then the Internal Revenue Code was adopted to be conforming with the most recent version, since it used to be based on the 2018. So.
And future work would be our THC.
And we're going to see a lot on a THC at some point.
Okay. Any questions for Pam? If not, we'll move then to the remaining items on the agenda, including the administrative briefs for your review, the minutes from the Public Housing Commission, as well as their agenda, our cash and investment reports, our report of building permits, and the listing of upcoming meetings. Is there any item yet to come forward at this meeting this evening? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Jim to adjourn. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We are adjourned.